Hey, gang, this is Carl White, and you are listening to the Author Showcase sponsored by the Scotsman's Guide. And on this episode, we're going to be interviewing the authors of a great article. The name of the article was The Seismic Shift Occurring in Your Workplace. And here to talk more about it is Mr. Jim Clapp and Franco Terango. And Jim, you're in the Dallas area, if I remember right.
That's right. Dallas,
And then
Texas.
Franco, you're in the Los Angeles area.
Lovely Los Angeles. Yes, sir.
So when I first heard, I saw the seismic shift. I went, okay, what's happening in LA? What's going on down there? So
Yeah.
here in Florida and Jim in Dallas, we don't have seismic shifts that often. But great to have you guys here. So this article was in the residential edition of the Scotsman's Guide. So there's two. There's the commercial and the residential. This was in January, the residential. So for our listeners, make sure you go check it out there. But Jim, Franco, why don't one of you take it and kind of give us a 30,000 foot view of what this article talked about?
Yeah, I'll kick it off, and Jim, you can jump in. And you hate to be hyperbolic but you got this headline saying seismic shift occurring in your workplace. But it really is not. I mean, the shift that we've seen since 2020 in this business has been as dramatic. I've been in the business 36 years, and this is probably as dramatic of a shift as we've seen. Start to see a generational shift in moving from baby boomers to younger generations starting to come into the workplace. We've seen a shift from work at home to working in the office. We've seen a major shift in technology that can't replace the personal elements of this business, but is creating great efficiencies within the business. So seismic fits, and it's something that we all need to be aware of, something that Jim and I are certainly aware of in our business, and we decided to write about it. But Jim, any other comments you'd make on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've made this point to our company a couple of times is that you don't, a lot of times these seismic shifts, you don't really realize until you look back 2, 3, 4 years past the event, right? I mean, clearly COVID and that seismic shift, I think, is well documented and probably well discussed. And that's more the work from home and that kind of stuff that Franco alluded to. But I think what we were getting at is that, we finally have reached a point in the industry where technology and AI and all that kind of stuff is seismically shifting the way that we conduct the mortgage business. And you basically have to embrace that, lean into it, or you'll be a laggard and you'll find yourself really separating at the back of the pack. Because I used to be a warehouse lender, and I can remember a conversation 15, 18 years ago with a CEO of one of my borrowers who's still now running one of the bigger mortgage companies in the country, and he brought up the point that why is it that I can go in and buy a $90,000 automobile, and it takes all of about 4 minutes for the finance office to issue me approval to buy a $90,000 vehicle. Yet if I'm buying a $90,000 house, I have 30 to 45 days of document collection and back and forth and all that. He said we as a mortgage industry have got to get to a point on par with that. And I'd say we've been talking about that for 15 years, but I think we're finally there. I mean, we are at that point, and sort of recognizing that's happening right, under our feet is kind of one of the points of the article we were making.
That's a great point. I never really thought about that, but you're right. I can literally walk into a dealer, buy a $90,000 car, and I'd say, like, realistically, 90 minutes later, drive out.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, I can go hide the car so they can't find it, but the house, they know where it's at, right? You can't hide that. So
Exactly.
so
And
that
cars depreciate right when you drive off the lot. Houses, many times appreciate, but we've made it, for years and years and years, such a difficult process.
Yeah. So let's talk for a few minutes. And I'm going to be bold enough. Some people are going to be listening to this, some people watching. So the ones watching, I think it'll be somewhat obvious. But the ones listening, just to let them know that none of the three of us on this call are millennials, right? We were probably a little bit, I'm a baby boomer myself. I don't know about you guys, but
I'm Gen X. So
Gen X, all right. And
I'm right on the cusp of.
right on the cut. So elaborate a little bit about, like in the article, you talked a little bit about how the expectations of the millennials are kind of reshaping the mortgage company's approach to attracting talent. So in this article, we talk more about attracting talent as opposed to attracting loans. So we have to have the people so that we can close the loans. How are these millennials reshaping our approach to attracting talent?
Again, Carl, I'll jump in first here. We do a good bit of recruiting, and literally, I'd say over the last year, I've met with hundreds of loan officers from different generations. But I think it's a great point, something we wanted to hit in the article, that all loan originators care about product, pricing, and process, right? So, what's your product set? How deep is your product set? Does it fit mine? Does it fit my community? Does it fit my clients? When you talk about pricing, obviously you want sharp pricing, what you do, so you can give, especially today with affordability. And then process, what's easy to process in that. What dramatically is changing over time now is in very quickly rising to the top of that list is technology and digital. And they want to know what's your platform? Can I board an app from my phone? Can I be out at my kid's softball game and talk to a client and price out a loan for a client? Can I go to an open house and print out marketing brochures? That is growing as much as important as those top three that have historically been the top three. The other piece of it is marketing. So the fifth element, I would say, is marketing. What do you have from a marketing platform? How can I market myself? Can I co-brand with partners? Can I share in the success and in the happiness of my clients? And so having a really strong marketing platform is also really critical. What I would say, and I think we did say in the article, is what doesn't change, while we want to enhance those technologies and want to be there because we got an evolving, not only recruiting, these recruits and new mortgage professionals coming into the business, but the clients are changing in regards to how they want to be addressed and where they're going to find you. So you've got to be on social media. You've got to be out there, in doing dynamic things. We see a lot more video now than we ever have in the past. And, that though can't be a substitute for the personal element of it, because what we can't lose sight of is that a home, buying a home is the most important thing a family or an individual will do in their lives. It's not only a sizable investment, but you tie your dreams into that. And so having those advisory skills is still critically important. So we've got to concentrate on both. We want the high tech, we want the ease, we want the efficiency, but we don't want to lose sight of, you're a professional, you got to know your business, you got to know guidelines, you got to put clients in what they can sustain over time, because we saw that in 0809 and living through that. Maybe that's where age helps a little bit, but those advisory skills are important. And then you got to be able to team up with professionals in the industry, whether they're realtors, builders, title company. You've got to be able to know who's going to be like-minded and who's going to take care of that client.
Yeah. So, Jim, have y'all found, like, what percentage of your and let's just for this question, let's not look at the loan officers, but let's look at the support team. Like in your business, what percentage is working remote, out of their home, or not, at least not under the roof of your office? What percent's working under roof versus under their own roof?
yeah, I'd say probably at any given time, 100% are working at home in some for some degree of time, right? I mean, not all are 100% at home, but there's no doubt that from, as Franco and I sit here, we're both sitting in home offices today. But the business lends itself to work from home because there's measurable outputs for most of our people, right? I mean, I can see, how many files you're processing, underwriting, closing, applications, et cetera. But I'd say that, 70% are probably working from home more than they're in an office. The other 30% are probably a hybrid model, and very, very few, if any, are 100%. And I say that there's probably, of any of our job functions, loan officers that probably go into an office on a regular basis more than they work from home. But it's no doubt changed the workplace. Now, we are seeing a subtle shift back. I mean, just this week, I asked some of our corporate employees, hey, let's all agree on a day that we're all going to go into the office so we can get face-to-face interaction, because I detect a certain sort of call it soft spot in culture building, right? Is that, if we're all remote all the time, it's really impossible to have the same dynamic that you have, sitting around, getting a cup of coffee, just all that interaction. So, but it's no doubt been changed forever, right? I mean, that's one of the lasting legacies of COVID is work from home. I don't think we'll ever see it ever go back to 8 to 5 in an office, especially in this business. But I think we'll slowly drift back to more of a hybrid model.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that same thing in my office. I did see an interesting note just the other day, though, that Zoom has recalled back a lot of their employees to start working under roof, which I thought was a little interesting there. But I one of the things that you guys brought out in the article is offering this flexibility to our employees. It attracts a higher level of talent because they do want flexibility. Is that kind of what the synopsis of it, Franco?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be naive of us to say to go back to a model where everybody's in the office or not, or checking people's badges and seeing if they're going into the office. Those days are gone. I think Jim hit it with getting more of a balance. We love, Jim and I love the office culture for all the reasons Jim explained. I mean, just the camaraderie, the discussions at the water cooler, the bouncing ideas off of each other. You can't get that dynamic by doing Zoom calls. Not as much. It's certainly more effective than the phone, but you're missing that dynamic. And so we would love people to go back into the office, but I think striking that balance, and when you have the technology that allows you to do it, so you don't have to be you're not tied to a desktop anymore. We're gonna continue to allow that flexibility in our business model.
Yeah. One challenge I've seen in the remote is I'm sure there's a name for it, but I don't know what it is where sometimes people can be a little bit more, what's the word, snarky when they're emailing or slacking or Zooming, not really Zoom, but when they're doing digital communication and not face to face. Like if we're face to face and we show up at the grocery store, I'll say, "Oh, dude, you first." But somehow when we get in our car, everybody gets all aggressive and horns and hand gestures and whatnot. Do you find that to be a challenge in the workforce? And is that part of the getting them back under one office is to have that camaraderie at some level?
Exactly. It's easier to walk out of your office and ask a question of somebody that's working a file than, trying to get them that, they don't respond. So you kind of send an email, maybe, and then the email escalates and then it rebounds. And there's an email trail of 30 emails that escalate and are memorialized, right? They never go away and they get forwarded on to others. It's just a very dangerous dynamic. So,
Yeah.
To your point, yeah. And I mean, this is not only in work, but in personal life. I mean, my kids, I mean, the idea of calling somebody is a foreign concept to them. I mean, it's like, look, have you tried picking up the phone and trying to resolve your issue? Well, no, why would I do that? I mean, and even email to them, for the most part is a foreign concept, right? I mean, it's text and snapping. And so you kind of have to be cognizant of that. But again, I mean, gently nudge back to the middle, right? Which is there is a happy medium here.
And I think there's an involvement of management as well in teaching those skills, knowing that there's going to be a balance there, that you still need to be professionals, you still need to pick up the phone. After 2 emails going back and forth, just pick up the phone and discuss the issue, as opposed to just that back and forth. And but Carl, I think you're exactly right. I think when you're not in person, or even, we don't see it as much by video, when people are face to face, it's amazing how much kinder and respectful they are to each other.
Yeah, it's funny. I knew the world had changed when I was this is so my oldest daughter is a millennial, and I knew the world had changed when I'm driving her and one of her friends to the theater back when people did that kind of thing, right? And so my daughter was sitting in the front seat and her friend was in the back seat, and my daughter's on her phone like doing messages. And I said, "Honey, you need to visit with your friend. You need to talk with your friend." She goes, "Daddy, we are talking." And they were talking on texting, sitting in the same car. So anyway, hey, another thing I wanted to bring up is in the article you mentioned the importance of leadership availability and decision making transparency. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, one of my great passions, I think Jim as well, is being present. I mean, communication is so critical for all the reasons we were talking about today, that you've got to have really crisp written communication, verbal communication. You got to be out in market. So we try to get out in market and visit, face to face with our people as well, and understanding those dynamics. But an element of this is business development. Are you invested in your people? Are you listening to what their needs are, what their dreams are, where they want to grow, and then taking action on that? And one of the terms that I think we used in the article is performance management. And I hate that term personally, because I think it's antiquated somewhat, because when you talk about performance management, you're really just talking about black and white and metrics, versus the evolution to me was performance enablement. And one of my former jobs, I was asked to run performance management nationally for a company, and I said I will take it if I can change my title to performance enablement, because just the words matter, but the essence of what we should be doing is enabling people to do what they want, and helping them get there, because that creates stickiness in this business. Whether you're new to the business or whether you're greatly experienced and highly successful, the investment in your people is really critical. So I think that availability, that communication has got to be really crisp. You can't waste people's times, and you've got to make that investment in them. That's how you sustain a culture. That's how you say it doesn't matter if it's a mortgage business or if you're working at GM. It's going to matter. Your investment in your people is going to retain them, and they're going to feel value in that.
Yeah, there's nothing that frustrates people more than not having availability or not being able to get an answer and access to leadership. I mean, it's kind of almost a I wouldn't say a joke in our company, but my availability is basically 24/7. So if the phone rings at 10:30, they may be wondering if I'm actually going to get it, but it's a culture sort of strong point of our company. And look, people want access, they want to be heard, and they don't want to feel like a number. And maybe that's back to the conversation earlier, part of the evolving generational shifts, right? I mean, boomers were just happy to have a job at a big corporation, and they went to work and punched a clock, and they didn't ask questions. But there's no doubt as we go into this Gen Z and others, that it's not the same. And if the leadership is just an email address or some guy they see on a company website, they're not likely to feel connected and engaged, and ultimately probably not a long-term employee, because they want to feel more connected, and that means access to leadership.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sorry, can I make one more point to this that I should have said? So one of the things that we've really evolved into is soliciting the feedback as well. So it's not enough that you're talking at people or you're even providing forums for them to be able to speak in. We're trying now to be really more progressive from the standpoint of soliciting consistent feedback, whether it's web surveys, listening sessions, doing things like that, where you're not waiting for these monumental events, or we hold an all hands call monthly. It's not enough to do, because then you're with hundreds of people and people feel uncomfortable. So doing it in more small forums, we're doing it anonymously and soliciting that feedback to how we're doing, what we should be doing, what they're seeing in the market. It's just another way of touching base with people. And I think, allowing them to feel some value in the direction of your company.
Yeah. So I guess the old "do it because I said so" days is a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's
Well, I never wanted to be treated that way. I think even
Yeah.
growing up. So if, to me that I hated that. So I never wanted to do that when I moved into management, but that for sure, those days are gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do that in this day and age, it's likely to be recorded and then go viral, and then next
Yeah.
It's a good point.
So how do we so for the companies that need to adapt to these things where more flexibility on the work schedule of of the team members and involving them in the decision making, making yourself available. How do mortgage companies, how do we measure the success of our adaptation to these workplace shifts? How do I know I'm doing it right?
Again, I think you've got to create a feedback loop, and you're not only soliciting ideas, but you're following up as to, okay, this is what you've asked. We've got you talk, we listen is a form that we have, and so we're soliciting that feedback, not only new ideas, but how we doing, and we're creating that 360 loop with, this is what you asked for, this is what we prioritized, and this is what we've knocked out. It's not overly complex once you set up the routines and you stick to your priorities. I mean, the discipline is in doing it, but you've got to, Carl, I think it's a great point. You've got to solicit the feedback that what you're doing is actually working and they're seeing value in it.
And it's a give and take. I mean, the privilege and the benefit of working from home comes with the expectations that you're doing the work. And again, the mortgage business is favorable to measurables, right? I mean, in some companies you would, you could tell me you're online 8 hours, but there's not a measurable output. But our businesses, we're basically a manufacturing a financial asset, and it's easy to see who on the assembly line is doing the work. And if they're not, it's not very hard. There's 1,000 tools out there to be able to tell who's doing it. So again, that's the give and take. I say, yeah, I'll allow you to work from home. You need to produce and do all that. As long as you do that, then we have a good agreement. But if you're not, then we're going to have to sort of ask you to come in and be under somebody's supervision, so we can see what in the world, how you're spending your 8 hours. But honestly, I think most of our employees understand that and relish the work from home flexibility, and therefore work harder. I mean, in my position, working from home and a 24/7 connectivity ultimately means I'm working more, not less. I mean, I'm never off the clock in my role. So back again in the good old days, you punched out at 5:30 or 6 and went home, and you didn't worry about it. But now that email chimes at 8:30 at night, you pick it up and you read it. So that's the downside, I suppose, to all this connectivity and technology, is you can really never turn it off unless you're conscious about doing that.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, so you guys work over at Certainty Home Lending. If somebody wants to, what do you guys do over there, and what? I take it you've incorporated these ideas into your own mortgage company, of course. So tell me a little bit about what you guys do over at Certainty Home Lending.
Well, I basically say Certainty Home Lending is affiliated with the guaranteed rate companies, and so I would say our pitch is, look, we give you the best of both worlds. You get to work in a smaller sort of family feel culture, where very flat organization. You have access to Franco, myself, and all that. But you get all the benefits and toys of a big company. You get the technology that GR companies provide. You get the execution, secondary market. You get market leading sort of intel and research and all that. So there's not a lot of shops. You can either go, I want to work at a small shop, and I realize I'm not going to get all the accoutrements of the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can work at a big shop and feel like you're part of a big company, and that may be fine for you. But ours is more of a value prop if you get the best of both worlds here. And so we're retail mortgage banking, and we're on an expansion path right now. And so we're from California to Washington, DC, and those markets, we're out actively growing this company and looking at this as an opportunity, right? I mean, we've been through 24 months of a very depressed market, but it's a great time to sort of grow, because we all know that the industry cycles, and those that invest in the down cycle reap the benefits when the cycle turns up.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, boy, I thought it's times like these where we really focus on market share. So as a market expands, our piece of that pie expands too. Franco, anything I should have asked you today that I didn't? Did I miss anything? You think we covered it okay?
I think you covered it great, Carl. I would just piggyback because Jim did a great job describing certainty home lending, because we are certainty home lending, I'd say, powered by guaranteed rate, and our growth, especially in this environment, is really important because we understand that as the market contracts, I mean, having the ability to grow in this environment and grow with a company that has product, pricing, process, and the things that I covered as well, as far as now tech, being a high-tech company, a lot of investment in our technology, in those efficiencies, having, I'd say world-class marketing, and, very competitive compensation. All of that is very attractive in this environment. But more than anything, I think at this stage in my career, we want to be industry stewards as well, and represent the industry and our peers, and help our peers along, because it's just an important inflection point, not only from an industry, even from a country standpoint. Housing is top of mind for everyone in all of these markets. So how do we support our communities? How do we get more people in homes? Those are things that we really care about. So, Carl, it's been a pleasure being on your program today, and love to be able to come back.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, loved your article. Again, be sure to go check it out. It's in the January edition of the Scotsman's Guide, the residential side of it. So, Jim, Franco, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Hey, for our listeners, thanks so much for hanging in there with us. We appreciate y'all being a part of this also. Without you, there is no podcast. And the only thing we ask in return is to take this episode, forward it to 3 of your favorite loan officer friends or mortgage professionals. And boy, that we'd be honored. We'd be honored if you would do that. So thanks again. We appreciate you guys. You've been listening to Author Showcase, again, powered by the Scotsman Guide. My name is Carl White, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.